Thank you, Yukako Yamashita-san, for the invitation, and Yuko-san, Hasegawa-san, for the dialogue we have been conducting for years, for her generous friendship, and for all that she does for art. Her friendship and intelligence have allowed me to learn a great deal and to grow intellectually a lot. I would like to demonstrate now three things to you today that what we call nature is an open-end museum, this is why we can only relate to nature through exhibitions, and this is precisely why we must think of nature and technology as identical. Let's start with the first point. If we fail to think of nature as a sphere of artists, it is because we think of the transformation of natural form as related to a need for adaptation. That is, if we are accustomed to thinking that evolution is a blind force acting from outside living beings, that necessarily leads to them to improve. Yet already Darwin, at the end of his life, discovered that this way was not the case. Just observe a peacock. Now, what is the paradox of the peacock? First of all, to explain the genesis of the evolution of the figures on the bird's tail, one has to imagine that someone saw the shapes and chose the shapes against the absence of shapes. So it's not external force that makes the shapes evolve, but a judgment of taste. As the species itself, the shapes itself. And those who have chosen, so the living beings who have chosen the shapes on the tail, have chosen gradually more and more beautiful forms. These forms do not allow great adaptation to the environment because the tail prevent the flight and to escape. Imagine having an immense part of your body, which is a kind of folding advertising poster which serves only to tell you how beautiful you are. So the body of the peacock is thus merely an expression of the taste of the species, a kind of artistic will that has no biological utility and responds to near real calculation for better survival. Richard Prum, a Yale ornithologist, has therefore suggested that we should consider species as artistic units, as forms of bioart. And in this case, the female peacocks are curators and male peacocks are performers. And the peacock species is one long artistic performance. And art is not just the relationship that allows living beings to relate to their own form, it's also the relationship that species have with each other. Think of any meadow full of flowers. Flowers are sexual organs, very often are hermaphroditic, which is containing both male and female organs simultaneously. Yet, self-fertilization is often forbidden by nature. This requires the intervention of a third party, which can be water, wind, or precisely an animal, an insect, or a hummingbird, or a pollinator. This is something, if you think about that, extremely strange. In order to have sexual intercourse, many flowering plants must involve an individual that belongs not only to a different species, but to a totally different realm. Love becomes an orgy in which species from different kingdoms participate. It is as if a human being, in order to impregnate his or their fellow human being, must hand over the seed to a mushroom or an oak tree and ask it to decide with whom. So the paradox is this: the pollinator is in the same position as a farmer or a geneticist, deciding with whom to mate. In contrast, through the flower, a species puts the biological and genetic fate of its species in the hand of an individual who knows nothing and shares nothing of its nature. Now, bees, birds, and other pollinators do not decide on the basis of calculated, but on purely aesthetic grounds. It's the shape and color of the flower the sucrose content, etc., that decide which other flower will be visited. And if we take this fact literally, we would have to say that a flower video is a kind of opening a museum that bees have built to their liking, a kind of entomological biennial. And after all, this is actually why it's necessary to use art to talk about nature. And if species are artists, we don't need just art to do ecology, we need curators, exhibitions, and museums, so that these art that exist mostly outside of the city also exist inside of the city. And actually, we've always done that. Nature exists in the city today only in two alienated forms, the park and natural history museums. And in both cases, nature is exposed, it exists as an exhibition, it's put on display, but to achieve results opposite to those for which the device of the exhibition is normally used. Normally, the exhibition serves to include elements of space and time within the city. It serves to expand the limits of the city, both in a cultural, ethnic, and material sense, and above all, to presentify the future. One goes to an exhibition to divine what will happen. In the case of nature, the opposite happens. In natural history museums, nature is exhibited as nailed down to an absolute ancestral past, an absence of modernity that is sympathetic to and consistent with the myth of politics as an exit from nature. Nature possesses no modernity, no future. It's an eternal past that is not to be disturbed. On the other hand, in urban parks, nature is exhibited, but in a way that flaunts its exteriority to the city. A park is an exhibition outside a museum, rather a heterogeneous collection of objects that are collected only so that their image may arouse in those who contemplate or frequent them the illusion that they are no longer in the city, that they have emerged from modernity. Exhibitions of nature in the city therefore deny to nature any modernity and any artistic capacity. And it's necessary to change this point. It's necessary to find another way of exhibiting nature. So I have two possible examples. One is an exhibition that took place a few months ago at the National Museum in Oslo, curated by the Milanese duo of Phantasma, to which I myself contributed. The exhibition, whose title is Oltre Terra, so Beyond the Land, focuses on history, ecology, and global dynamics of wool extraction and production. The interesting aspect, or one of the most interesting aspects of this exhibition, is precisely the treatment of the display device. In fact, the scenic arrangement deconstructs the structure of the diorama. It takes the elements that used to figure in a diorama one by one, separating them and flattening them on the same table, which assembles to a surgical plane. It is as if the diorama itself is turned upside down like a sock. This means that the viewer, paradoxically, is put in the center and is part of this explosion of this diorama, or enters into it. From being a natural observer of the cosmos, humanity rediscovered itself as an integral part of what it had reduced to a spectacle. And indeed, at the center of the exhibition, there is a video that contains a beautiful reflection on interspecific touch, made by Joanna Piotrowska at Forma Phantasma. Like the other senses, touch always means coming to terms with the reciprocity of being touched. Because while one can see without being seen, taste without being tasted, hear without being heard, it's impossible to be to touch without being touched. And this video is a way of saying that every nature exhibition should allow us to touch nature and to be touched by it. And the museum is the ideal place to do that. Another important aspect of the exhibition is the total identity between design and contemplation of the planet. Wool as an artificial artifact is shown as a simple intersection between practices of biological different subjects, so human, shapes, plants, mountain, and so on, and cultural and natural dimension, law, history, mythology. So nature as art is also technology. And we need to think about this identity between nature and technology. And to demonstrate it in a playful way, I would like to take a trivial example, that of Pokemon. The adventures of Sasha and Pikachu embody an absolute amazing insight. To understand it, one need only to recall the few basic facts that govern this universe. Pokemon are natural creatures like fabulous animals or forest spirits with incredible powers. Children are the trainers, and to bond with them, they need an array of high-tech devices, Pokédex, bracelets, and most importantly, Pokeballs. So we come from a world where technology is always considered in opposition to every natural being, whether it is a pair of glasses, a watch, a computer, or a car. Any artifact that can claim to be a product of technology is seen as artificial and in opposition to the course of living beings. It's this same assumption that inspires the neo-romantic infatuation with huts, the illusion that to be close to nature, an object must pretend not to be technical, to have nothing to do with the metamorphoses of reality. This perspective poses two problems. The fact that the world of living beings that do not have human form is seen as incapable of metamorphosis and unable to voluntarily and arbitrarily manipulate the world, and the fact that this vision continues to think in terms of radical opposition between the human world and the rest of the living world. And the Pokemon universe, however, as in that of other animated films, everything is transformed, and the relationship with the sacred spirits of nature and earth can only to be established with the equivalent of our smartphone. It would be hard to find a more beautiful idea. Technology is not there to defend us or keep us away from nature, from the forest, from rivers, from fungi, animals, bacteria, or storm, but to connect and interact with their more spiritual face. That's why it's only through art and technology that we can relate to nature. Thank you so much.
Coccia-san, thank you very much. I would like to speak in Japanese. So, a fresh text was provided by Coccia-san, and there was another book written by Coccia-san, that is Metamorphoses. So, genetical relationship between human and the flowers, actually 90% are common, and an interspecies ideas has been appealed by Coccia-san. So post-humane methodology is extremely important, but today we are looking at the art and technology as well as museums. Those are the three keywords expressed by Coccia-san. Now, as you listen to the presentation, you probably felt many things. One thing is that what is human and what is artificially created, we see their conflict between the two. One of which is the natural museums where the living organs are being expressed, and then also there are many artificial things or maybe displayed and demonstrated in the form of art galleries and exhibitions. But how can we be in touch with the creation that we found in the natural environment? So in that context, what are the role of the museum? What are the role of the artist where the technology being blessed? So that relationship mentioned. So Kocha Sensei, do you think my understanding is right, correct?
Is it a kind of, I understand, yeah, I just explained what my understanding, is it correct?
No, it's okay.
Thank you very much. Good, I'm relieved. And so with the Kocha Sensei, Professor Kocha, at the 21st Museum of Art, Contemporary Art in Kanazawa, so polyphonic, the expression is displayed in my museum. So I'm looking forward to this new event, working together with Kocha Sensei, and we've been excited for this particular event coming close in the future. Now, we have a great relationship already with Kocha Sensei, but about 15 years through the Biennale, through the investigations, the new way of art and ecology that research has taken place. One thing that I would like to share this time is that Moscow Biennale example I would like to share with you. So would you please show the slide? Thank you. So 2017 to 2018 at the Tretyakov Gallery. This is a cloud forest in Moscow Biennale. Why we came up with this is because that including internet, cloud or native people, when it comes to the natural things like a soil, air, whatever, the information from our own hands-on experience from the nature, I think we are distanced from that. That's a reality. So when it comes to the actual, the material, the soil, for example, the ground, for example, how can we be in touch with them and how can we be connected with the people who used to be so close to them? We often talk about, natural environment today, but not that. The ecology of the environment surrounding us, that should be focused more because for us, it is going to be regarded as entirely new environment. So the clouds tribes, the people who are living in online, in the internet, and another the segment, the people who are living closer to the nature and then through the experience, the bodily, physical experience, understanding what's going on in reality. There are two groups here. And then there should be the vector of coming closer. So actually there is no border lines between the two, as if that the water is evaporated into the mist, and then the mist will become the cloud, and then the cloud produces the rain again. So we would like to see the circulation that encompasses everybody. So this has been discussed also everywhere. This time Kocha Sensei talked about the natural environment and the art.
So in this discussion, we have to focus on the environment and what we have to think about what our environment are and what's the range of ecological thinking. And this is what Gatali said. There are social ecology, mental ecology, and environmental ecology. In addition to that, he proposed informational ecology. This may be a very difficult sentence to understand, but what he said was that acts of artistic perception, processing, analyzing, and responding to sensory information through the language and skills unique to visual arts serve to peel off and deterritorialize fragments of reality and partially re-encode them. Art is in a subset of the perceived world which reinvest it with meaning and heterogeneity. Art's almost animistic method of capturing language results in the recreation of subjectivity in both the art producer and consumer. This is very difficult sentence and not easy to digest. But what I took from it is that we have to think about the role of the artists and also the mediums and technology that artists use, or rituals, and also other methodologies. All of those things have to be considered, I think. And there is another thing I want to talk about. This is about sensing. In a sense, this is a very dramatic text introduced or proposed by him. This is about how we can be closer to objects which is not me. Now we are having event ambient Kyoto. Ambient is originally came from the word environment. Environment is about everything that we have, and about the everything we have, how we should sense them. It takes imagination. We have to enhance our imagination to perceive what we have around us. So those are the keywords that I've been working on. This is about forest tribes. Now let me talk about forest tribes. People who used to live on the land, how they encountered cloud and what kind of technology they've used to come up with new realm or a new world. This is one example by Natalia Bazowska. He's a medical doctor and he tried to create sculpture by using hybrid between plants and human. And he came to this idea because she used to have a wolf as her friend, and this wolf could talk to her, and she wanted to create art out of this experience. Here is another example. Can I have a film of this art piece? This is a singer of Iceland. However, she uses her own original Icelanders' original music rather than Western music. She uses a very primitive methodology and she connected it to futuristic art. This is the virtual body she used in her piece. The original form was rooted on the land, however, it can go into the cloud and connects to the world. I think she can lead the way for the idea of the forest cloud. This is difficult to see, but I think you all know this artist. This is virtual reality piece that she created. Here I want to talk about Hyper Ballad. I'm sure that you know this song. I don't know if this translation is correct translation of this song, but what this says is that this person goes to the edge of a mountain and throw away many items from the top of the mountain. And this was about Timothy Morton. She inspired Timothy Morton, and then those two started dialogue. Those kind of various interactions were there between the tribes and also the clouds. Hyper objects, invisible things such as bacteria or radiation, all those things are around us. Those hyper objects, we have to sense them, and that is related to the song that I'm displaying here. This is another example, Gaudi Gil from India. He used pictogram from ancient days. He connected the current landscape and the hyper world. And this is about cloud tribe. I think some of you are post-internet generation. Something you may think easy may be difficult for older generation to understand. However, recently, when I look at younger generation, they, for example, in Kanazawa, they try to go to the roots of the things after getting to know some items on the internet. For example, EcoTour is one such example. Many people are engaged in EcoTour to understand the roots of the things. Therefore, many cloud tribes are using emojis, or they are having the process of regression in a sense. But on the other hand, they utilize technology. So there are both ways that they are using. This is the image that I have in mind. This is by French artist Louise Drouet. She uses the landscape on the internet, such as Google Map, and used those data to create her art. What is interesting about her, according to her video, is that she utilizes online data or online architecture, including maps, to create her art. Another example, this is by Valia Festis. And this person is a media artist. This person created this art using the data of her communication with her friends online. That's why the title is Be My Friend. This is by D.Z. Ginsburg. He tries to create synthetic plants. He's also a researcher. She's also a researcher. She creates living creatures, imaginary living creatures in her artwork, and explore the functions of those imaginary species. Let me be brief. I think many of you have seen this exhibition. This is the exhibition by Tokyo Art University. After the cloud forest, I came up with this idea, the function of the artist. I thought about the functions of the artist, Anthropocene, or too much focus on the capitalism. Those are the source of the problems that we are facing now. And in this world, how can we respond to those challenges? Our suggestion is to do learning through sensory and also body, and also we have to have a micro perspective, such as the body senses. And the other thing is macro or data visualization utilizing the data or other information. By having two different perspectives, we can explore how we should perceive the world and what steps we have to take in order to deal with those challenges, including the area of fashion and architecture. We are now divided, but we have to be reconnected through empathy. As Coccia mentioned, animals and plants and artificial things. We have to explore the possibility of multi-humanity by involving all those things. As we are human beings, we can understand only human being. However, flying for birds have different meaning to human being. That kind of sense we have to obtain, and that way we can better understand birds. And also, when we think about the pollination of plants, we can expand our imagination of the plants. By having that broader sensing, we can generate or nurture respect to other species.
So that's how we would like to be involved. And then let me just skip all the photos here. So those are the thinking behind this exhibition. And this is what we have done with this thinking. So together with the animals and creation of the nature, by coming up with the proposal, we'll be able to maintain the voice. And then with that voice, we now find our presence in the metaverse world. How are we going to make a metaverse world better? So in a way, contribution can make. Otherwise, will never be able to continuously be in the metaverse world without any contribution. So how we can well understand the world, and then what kind of measures that can be taken to make it better. And so that was the exhibition here. So now we would like to have a session now. Are you ready, Coccia-san? Emanuele-san, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Already you have seen the exhibition, so I'm sorry, maybe that bored you because you know it already. But as I listened to Coccia-san's presentation, I got a new perspective, a new sense. And those of you in the place, Ploma Contatsuma, you talked about the demolition of a diorama. So by having this large exploration, the device such as exhibition or the museums, that provides the opportunity for the people to get in touch with the nature. So we like to explore your thinking. We would like to maybe ask you to think, to talk more about the touching the senses, and then how that walls are being used in the past. And so to feel it, to understand it, and make it sure that we are together with them living in this world. Maybe you can explore more your points, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for this question. Actually, it's the key point actually of what I tried to show, and it's also a key point of good exhibitions, I would say, about nature. Coming back to the exhibition made by Forma Fantasma. So or coming back to the general problem of nature exhibition. So as I said, if you think about that, nature exists within the city just under the form of exhibition. So if you're in Tokyo or in Chicago, New York, Paris, Santiago, whatever, nature exists within the spaces under the form of exhibition. And there are two main forms, which are like the park, so the urban park, or the natural history museums. And in the two cases, nature is like exhibited. In the case of a natural park, nature is there just in order to express the fact that it's not the city, to express this exteriority of the trees or the insects to the city, so that you have the impression every time that you are entering within the park to be outside the city, to have quitted the city, whereby you still are in Tokyo, Santiago, Dakar, or whatever. So it's a sort of spectacle. It's not real nature. So the trees, the insects, the lake, everything which is in the park is like taken into hostage in order to show or to produce the illusion of being outside of the cities. So in that sense it's an exhibition. Natural history museums are also literally exhibitions, but in that case, nature is taken into hostage in order to show the fact that it's belonging to the past. Every time that you are entering in the natural history museums, you are looking at nature as something which is coming from a past which has, in a way, never modified itself, or which never touches the present time. What do I mean? I mean that within natural history museums, so the evolution is considered to be something which belongs to the past, which has always taken place already, and which doesn't touch the future. So in both cases, in a way, exhibitions are there in order to let us touch the nature without the nature can touch us, or without the nature can touch the present time. So in a way, we are allowed to touch without being touched by nature. That's the main problem, I would say, of the way how nature exists within the city. And what we have to build, and this is exactly what you said in your presentation, Yuko-san, but it's also what you did actually in the last exhibition in Tokyo, and that's why I was so impressed by this exhibition, is to show that nature can touch us. What does it mean? It means, in a way, exactly the reverse of the two elements I told about parks and museums. So nature can touch us if it can be a part of our city, if it can be a part of modernity, if it can be an active citizen. And nature can touch us if it contains future, if it's like something which is always changing and always producing new forms. That's why we have to invent, or you already did it, but also other people, let's say that, to invent exhibition where nature is showed as something which is also urban and which is also modern. I would perhaps, I don't know, because I can speak like for hours, so but I don't want to bother the public. But this, I think this is this could be a first answer to your question.
Thank you very much. So as you listen to the talk so far, so the role of our museums and then the existence of the park, we are looking at the presence, whereas Natural History Museum are exhibiting the past. And there are different transients, maybe the phrases passes. And that's how I understood the talk now. But when it comes to the ecology, of course, including the nature or ourselves, if you were to exhibit the ecology, for example, Coccia sensei, what kind of exhibition you are thinking of having? What kind of artist would you like to invite so that your ecological ideas can be explored? Are there any thinking or ideas today? What kind of artists would you like to invite? Proa Phantasma is discussed as a former exhibition. Are there any artists of your preference using particular technology? What kind of a person do you have in mind? Artist, I mean.
It's a tricky question. I don't know because if I'm now naming some artists, I'm sure that yeah, I'm sure that I will forget someone else. So I would not make names, but just just describe the kind of artist. No, I would say that one thing that it could be interesting. I mean, beyond a lot of artists that we both know, you also know a lot of artists. You already did exhibitions, and but beside the names, I would say that one interesting new aspect of exhibitions about ecology would be to transform the landscape to become a sort of landscape architectural exhibitions, not just objects within a space, but the shaping of new spaces. And what we have to invent, perhaps, is a new form of parks, of gardens. In a way, if you think about that, I really think that we still build parks or gardens as in the 19th century. We didn't invent any new way of producing gardens in the sense of making a garden a space where nature itself is creating new forms of existence. So even I'm just now thinking of the city where I'm living, Paris. In the beginning of the 20, of this century, they built a new the garden, which was considered to be the new space of the 21st century. So the Parc de la Villette, created by Chumi. But even in this case, I mean, Chumi is a great architect, but his park was so 19th century, so old. The idea of future is so like, it's so not corresponding to our standards of, or to our way of perceiving modernity. So a good challenge could be to me to invent new gardens and to shape gardens which are really contemporary. So it's not so easy, apparently, but it could be interesting to actually to ask artists and not landscape architects to invent gardens, to make sort of biennial in somewhere and ask artists, and not biennial because a garden can last forever. So to make a sort of art something, an art event, whereas a dozen of artists are invited to make gardens in a city. And then the city is like obliged to create these gardens for at least 10 years. That could be an interesting way of renovating the way how nature and art are dialoguing together. And it could be sort of migrating event in the sense that one could start from Kyoto and then Tokyo, Osaka, and then migrate and conquer other continents, China, India, Europe, US. But it could be interesting if artists take control about gardens all over the world.
Garden, in a sense, is an interaction between human being and the nature. It can be a space artists can show or exhibit what they want to express. I think this is a great metaphor. When this happens in Japan, when we think about gardens, we have a very long history in Japan around garden. And Japanese garden is not artificially controlled like Western gardens. There are a lot of liberty in Japanese gardens. So that kind of garden Maybe a good idea as well. In France, Gilles Cremam produced living garden. There is no control by human being. They utilize the power of the plants in his garden. In that sense, about the garden, for example, between Japan and France, is there any commonality or differences you want to point out?
I would say that Japan is more interesting about in this kind of discourses than France. Also, I mean, you are one of the examples. The shows that you can see in Japan about art and ecology are much more interesting of the shows you can see in France, because in France there is a very romantic approach to nature. So nature is really considered to be something which is like extremely not modern, not like contemporary and so on. And also because the as you just said in your presentation, whenever people are speaking about Anthropocene or about ecology in France, the accent is stressed. I mean, what is stressed is the guilt or the responsibility, and not the way, as you showed in your exhibitions or as you just said in your presentation, not the way how we can improve our feelings or our way of perceptions in order to better understand nature. But then another aspect which is interesting, and now I am posing you a question. Another element which is interesting and which was to me extremely important was to discover physically the museum in Kanazawa, which is like the construction by Sana, but you also contributed to the idea. So the museum in Kanazawa is beautiful because it's sort of cloud made out different elements. It's like a sort of archipel of different like kingdoms. And this is a very beautiful metaphor about nature, because we think of nature as something unique, but nature is always a multiplicity of natures. So it's like nature should be also always named in plural. So I would like to ask you how I mean, did you come up in the dialogue with Sana to this idea, and what does it mean to make exhibitions in this space?
When we came up with the idea of suns, we wanted to create a city, and also we wanted to have a city within the museum. So inside and outside had to be loosely connected. There has to be organic connection between the city and museum, because there are many things going on in the cities. If you look at 16 exhibition rooms, the proportions are all different. That means that each room has each uniqueness. Each room has each voice. It's very polyphonic. That's diversity. But within that big museum, we have an harmony of 16 rooms. That's the image that I have in mind. At each room, even if we have many different things going on, and they are emphasizing with each other, that is the place of empathy. That's how I want to design. At the center, we have a gallery. There are many different unique cultures or characteristics there. However, we have different public spaces. You can exhibit things any place. There are places that you can exist. It's not that any place is specifically for artwork or for human being. That's why I think you had that impression about our museum.
And I have another question, Yuko-san, if you allow me, because as I also told you, and I repeat it also now, I was extremely impressed by the last exhibition you were speaking about in Tokyo at the University of Arts. Just was asking you how did you? I mean, why did you start to make exhibitions about ecology? Because you showed us like this kind of series of exhibitions you did. How did it start your the dealing with ecological with the relationship between ecology and art. Is there? I mean, there was an artist that pushed you to these kind of ideas or readings, or I don't know. I want to know more about the prehistory of what you showed us today.
ありがとうございます。で、やっぱり気候変動とかその環境の問題が問われた時にやっぱりそのことの意識というのはあって、どういうふうに自然破壊が行われているのか、資本主義が過剰に行き過ぎていて問題が起こっているかについては誰もがおそらくミレニアム以降意識を持っていたことだと思います。でもそれに対してではエコロジーで展覧会キュレーターとしてアーティストあるいは他の表現者と共にそれをどのような形で一つのテーマとして扱っていくか、またもう少しリサーチとか準備がいりました。
First thing that I have done, basically, the segmented or broken information sharing, and also another, the portion that is ecosystem. I wanted to present the both. So talking about that macro view, I came to understand something new. Forest of Ueno, you're familiar that there are students and the faculty members are there. And looking at them, they are actually a beautiful ecology that surround me. I mean, by looking at the forest and then the people there, and then how can we express that? How we can make them standing out? So we, of course, help students and then the faculty members, students and faculty members who are familiar with the forest of Ueno. Those are the people who are living there. And then it was important to work together. It's a friendly exhibition, but not only that. It is a space where we share, we breathe together, and then how against the theme people can respond to. So actually, when it comes to the artworks, presentation, expression, exhibitions, we ask them to come up with what they want to express. So what they interpret their space, the environment. So that's one of the ecological theme, that exhibition theme.
Thank you so much.
And also, I would like to add, there are some expression, evaluation issue. We wanted to make it into a positive note, and then also functional, the proposal that is to do with the economy. We wanted to include them because that's also the part of the response to the ecology itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We only have 5 more minutes to go. Only a few minutes. We would like to maybe entertain questions. This is a great opportunity for you. So if you have any questions to Coccia Sensei, would you please raise them? Maybe we can entertain 2 questions at least. It's a great opportunity, and Coccia Sensei woke up so early in the morning to meet you all. Yes.
Thank you. First of all, really thank you for this incredibly important subject matter and for all the new and creative insights you brought to it. And Emanuele, for being a resident of France, I could not agree more with you that sadly many times exhibitions about ecology are almost complacent in the guilt they advocate and don't look into exploring new routes. So I'm really excited about your garden idea, and I look forward to seeing how it unfolds. The question I now have for both you and Yuko is, there's the exhibition and then there's the experience of it. And even though we create exhibitions that appeal to the senses, how do we make sure, what do you provide for in the mediation for the audiences, and also in terms of a durability, without being patronizing either, without depriving them from an original experience that they can own. So how do you envision this? Is this very present in how you imagine an exhibition? And yeah, would love to hear both of your thoughts about that.
Yuko, you can start. No, you start.
So now let me respond to your question. Yes, when it comes to the media for the exhibition, that particular audience, that person need to have a certain level of actuality. So when you touch something or when you see something, there has to be a physical something, and then knowledge production, and then have a proper interpretation of the information, and then create your own new sense. That process is required. Not only sensory experience, but the knowledge production must be there. So for that process, for example, wearing something or a space that you feel day to day, something very specific, there should be some design for you to sense them properly with the knowledge. And also at the same time, internet or metaverse area where you can actually sense and feel, you go right in and you have your own hands-on experience. So proactive and active interaction, emotional, and then also the intellectual interactions must be provided. In other words, different mediums has to be there in a mixed manner. I pay a close attention to that. Coccia Sensei, please.
Yeah. So thank you so much. It's a big challenge. It's perhaps the most important aspect in an exhibition, I would say. I don't have, of course, a unique answer, but I would say that the point is that every exhibition is a multiplication of senses. So exhibitions is like a sort of what Rimbaud would call the dérèglement de tous les sens. In the sense that within an exhibition, you have to use all five senses: the touch, the taste, the smell, the sight, the sound, and this can produce, in a way, a multiplication of knowledge. Because you can stress some aspect and then produce an echo sometime after, and so on. This could be a way in order to accompany the experience, to multiply each time that you're experiencing something with a sense, to multiply the same experience with another sense. Then what is also interesting in exhibitions is the fact that they are multiplying the experience not just simultaneously, but in time. What do I mean? I mean that, for instance, catalogs are this kind of devices. So a catalog is a way to continue to keep experiencing the museum outside a museum and after the experience is over. So, but we don't think of catalog this way. We think of catalog in a I would say in a purely documentary way, and it's wrong. We should think of catalog as a resurrection of the experience of the exhibition. We should think of catalog as a sort of décalage in time of the experience, and that could be another way of accompany the visitors, the public, in the experience. Another way of try to give an answer to your question or to solve the problem you raised is to take inspiration from video games. So video games are like a very immersive experience. But it's the point with video game is not just the immersion. The point with video games is the fact that you are allowed to make the experience of someone from its internal point of view, to becomes the demon of this someone. Perhaps exhibitions should become more like video games in the sense that should allow the visitors to identify so deeply with what they are seeing that they becomes the demons. So they becomes the consciousness of the object they are looking at.
Maybe one more question we can entertain. Talking about the game, at our museum, we are exhibiting games. The new way of having game. Artists are utilizing game engines in a very creative ways. You can be one actor in the world, so you can be a creator within the game. That's the benefit of having game in the museum. We are exploring the world as an artist, but the visitors can also explore the world through the art. Any other questions? No questions? Then, if there is no question, I'd like to conclude this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Once again, Hasegawa sensei, Coccia sensei, thank you very much.